everyone, welcome back and welcome back to a Cook With Me day. Well, as you can tell, I'm up here in the craft room and my introduction will be done from here because my video is going to be a voiceover today. And it isn't something I could cook in advance, and so I had to really wait until it was time to cook dinner. And in order to do that, I am cooking with the football game, 3 other people and 2 dogs in the background. So it was easier to do it as a voiceover as opposed to trying to avoid any and all extraneous noises like dogs barking. So anyway, today we're making stuffed acorn squash. And I must tell you, because I'm recording this after the fact, that it was in fact delicious. And 4 people can attest to that, not just me. But anyway, we have stuffed acorn squash, but I'm making it vegetarian. My daughter-in-law chooses to eat vegetarian as much as possible. And so I have used Italian sausage, but I'm using a plant-based Italian sausage. And it really tastes delicious. So let me take you to the kitchen and we'll get busy looking at stuffed acorn squash, Italian style. Be right back. So here we are down at the counter, and you can see I've already cut the squash. And when I cut the squash for stuffing, I like to cut it top to bottom. You can see the one in the background has the stem, you can see. So I've cut them top to bottom. To me, that gives me more area to stuff. If you were going to be doing just like a butter and sugar, brown sugar or something like that, I'd probably cut them side to side because it gives you a deeper hole to add butter and brown sugar to. So now I'm just scraping out all of the seeds. I cut 3 squash, which actually is more than we need, but they were small, so I wasn't sure that 1 piece would be sufficient for everybody. But actually it worked out just fine. There were 2 left over. One went to school today for lunch, and the other is here for lunch. And they were perfect with a salad on the side. 1 was sufficient. So 1 piece of the squash with a good stuffing is plenty. Let's see what we do next. Hang in there, I'll be right back. Okay, now the next thing you need to do is to take a knife and to cut off just a little sliver on the bottom. You see that? And the reason that is so that it will sit flat when you put it on the pan or on the dinner plate. Otherwise it tips over and all the stuffing falls out. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm just taking a knife and cutting each one a little bit of a sliver so that it will sit nice and flat on the baking sheet. And once I have that finished, we'll move on to putting those in the oven and getting ready to make the stuffing. They go in the oven at 375 for about 45 minutes until they feel soft. You're really cooking the squash in advance. So there we go. And let's get these on the pan and in the oven. Be right back. So now you can see I get my cutting board out of the way, and there are the squash ready to go in the oven. Again, like I said, they'll go in at 375 for about 45 minutes. I think I put mine on for 40 and then shut the oven off because we weren't quite ready to eat. So let's do the stuffing. For the stuffing, I'm going to use an onion, some red pepper. This is the sausage. You see it says plant-based on the bottom. And this is Italian garlic and fennel. And then also an apple. And one last thing that will go in just before we stuff the squash will be chopped spinach. I have it in a bag with a paper towel right now. So let's get busy and get these vegetables prepped for making our stuffing. I'm going to start with the onion. And I think, not sure how much I'm going to use. I'm going to start with the half and see if I think I need more than the half. It's very possible that I want to have a little bit more than that, because I'm making, as I said, I cut 3 squash, so I need a little bit more stuffing than you normally would make. All right, I'm not going to talk while you watch me cut this onion after I get the onion skins out of the way. This is I think this is a Vidalia sweet onion, and the only reason I'm using that is because that's the one I had. When I went to order groceries, they didn't have a bag, so they sent me 1 onion. So let's get the onion in the pan, and we'll move on to the next part. I know what I'm doing here. I moved the camera to the other side because of my being left-handed. My arm was blocking everything I was cutting, so you couldn't really see. So I've just put my cutting board on the other side of the camera so we could see what was going on. Again, as I said, this is a Vidalia sweet onion, and this is the first half, and we'll see how this looks. And it doesn't have to be too terribly small because it's going to saute for quite a while, so it will soften up and give you good flavor. I think I'm going to add a little more. So let's get this out of the way and cut side number 2. Seems like when you have dead air time, you should have music or something. But anyway, I'm going to do not quite all of this because I think that when I see this now, it's about enough. All right, so we're going to get this onion in the pan and come back for the next. The next thing we're going to do is the red pepper. And I'm going to do about half of the red pepper. And if you had celery, you could also use that. I did not have any celery, so we didn't put that in. You know, these are the kind of vegetables that you can put in or leave out depending on what your tastes are. This gives a little color as well as a little crunch. We don't want to cook the label. And I'm just going to chop these up, nicely in little squares. And like I said, they're going to saute for quite a while, so you really don't have to make them too small. And that's about enough pepper. Because the red pepper, is sweeter than a green pepper, so it will give nice flavor. So now we'll get the peppers in the pan and move on to the sausage. Just let me get this in the pan and we'll be back with the sausage. Now I'm going to have to use scissors for this because what I'm going to do is remove the sausage from the casing. And so we want to get scissors to split the casing. And I must tell you, this is the first time I've used this particular brand of plant-based sausage. And the casings were a little harder to get off, or harder to cut, but the sausage is quite firm. And lots of times when you take the casing off of these plant-based products, whether it's Italian sausage or brats, the meat inside is very squishy, almost like working with raw liver. And for those of you who hate liver, you don't have to think it tastes like that. But it's not usually firm meat. And in this case, these sausages are quite firm. And you'll notice in a minute when I go to cut them it takes a little bit of an effort to chop them up. So I have the burner on low right now, just to get things in. And there are 4 of these sausages I'm going to add. And let's just get the last 2 of them in. And after that, I'm going to use my meat chopper. The meat chopper I got from Amazon. I love it. It's actually, I had one back in Florida, and I bought one for the guys here when I started making some of these casseroles that required chopping of meat. So here we are. This is the last of the sausage. And now we'll get the meat chopper and get it chopped up into the pan. And you can see it's a little bit firm, but it chops up beautifully and cooks down beautifully. And of course, unlike, I did have about a tablespoon of olive oil in the pan to start with, because unlike regular sausage, there's not but there's not a lot of grease or fats in these plant-based sausages. So they won't give off a lot of grease, and you don't have to drain anything when they're cooked. And very honestly, they taste just like Italian sausage. If I didn't know it was plant-based, I'd never know it was plant-based. And of course, some people say, why are you using plant-based sausage if the person's vegetarian? They're eating the same flavor as meat. Well, people are vegetarian for various reasons. Some of them are ideology. They don't believe in eating animals. And some of it is health reasons, because plant-based products, for the most part, do not contain the cholesterol and other kinds of harmful fats that regular meats do. So there's a lot of reasons why people choose to have this. But I find it's very good, and so we do at least one meatless meal a week, and it doesn't always have meat flavor. Sometimes there's no meat at all. But this one has the sausage. So let's get this ground up and stirred up, and we'll be back to add the next ingredient. Now you see how nicely it's ground up. And I'm getting everything all mixed together. I have to clean out my meat chopper. And then we'll go on to get the apple ready after I get this stirred around. And again, I have this pan on low heat. And I only throw a little of it out of the pan. Most of it stays in. Okay, now we're going to move on to the apple. And it only requires 1 apple. You could add more if you wanted more apple flavor. I just put the 1 in it. It wants to just be chopped. It does not need to be peeled, which is nice. So we're just going to take the core out and then chop up each of these sections of apple. And I chop them pretty finely. And it makes quite a bit. 1 apple, when it's chopped, makes quite a bit of product. And I hope I'm not making people squeamish. I always say people used to get nervous watching me chop because I was chopping with my left hand. And of course, most people being right-handed think that, I'm going to hurt myself because I'm using the wrong hand. But of course, for me, it's not the wrong hand. I'm glad I didn't have to peel it, because a lot of the peelers that you have out there don't work well if you're left-handed. Some of them do, and I have a couple, but some of them don't. So here we are. We've got most of it, half of that apple peeled. Get the other half. And like I said, I'm making a little bit more than the recipe actually calls for. And you'll see that when I do the spinach, because I have that extra squash. I wanted to make sure I had enough stuffing to stuff them all. Okay, so here's the last piece of apple, I think. And we'll get that put in.
I'll have to be quiet.
Oh, okay.
All right. And now I'm just going to swing this around so you can see the pan that I'm using. Here we are. And you can see that flame is on quite low. It's on actually low. Get the apple put in. Beginning to smell good. Now, it does say to add a pound of sausage. And then it says to add some rosemary and thyme. I did not add any of that because I used Italian flavored sausage, which is already garlic and Italian seasonings. So I didn't need to add any extra seasoning. So let's get the spinach ready. I washed it and then I had put it in a bag in a paper towel to keep it nice and crisp. And it is. You can't hear it, but I could hear it when I was rolling it up. Now, it called for 2 cups of spinach. I'm using the whole bag. Again, I'm making a little extra. And you know, spinach or kale or any of those green leafy vegetables just disintegrate or cook down to almost nothing by the time you've got them heated up in the pan. And you'll see when we do this one. So I'm just chopping it rough. It makes it easier to go in the pan. It's going to be, it will all cook down anyway. And I'll get all that spinach in. Okay, there's one batch, and we add some more. Okay, that looks good. Let's get it in the pan. Now you can see. And see how much spinach there is there. And when we go to stuff those squash, you won't see much of it at all.
I don't know what we do with a week without a walk.
At least.
And you can see already that it's kind of
At least one.
wilting down into the mixture.
Never happened. I don't see it happening.
This is really good stuffing. It's actually,
Like
if
West
if I
Palm
had a
or
little
backwards,
bit
Palm
of
West? 940.
cooked rice, I'd use it to stuff some peppers. And or anything like that, any kind of squash, butternut squash. Okay, now let's get the squash out because it must be pretty ready to be stuffed. And we're going to stuff the squash, and then we're going to put it under the broiler. And I have put a pat of butter and salt and pepper in each squash, if you can see the butter and the ones up close. And now we'll put the stuffing in. And you can see, as I'm stuffing, you don't see a whole lot of big pieces of spinach, even though I put that whole bag full in. And you want to stuff them as big and mounded as you can.
Put them here and put that over there.
All right,
But you knew that's what I thought.
let's get them.
Put the battery, you put the thing on the charger?
No, it's already fully charged.
Huh?
It's charged already.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Looks
So,
good, huh?
Carrie wants to put a chair here and here,
I mean, you've got
but that one.
squash and
she wants
spinach,
more like that.
onion and pepper
Get one.
and spinach. Got a nice balanced meal there. And you know what? It's really,
Even as I'm thinking this through, we don't.
I would say, kid friendly because there's no weird flavors. It just tastes like Italian sausage and vegetables.
No,
It's been a very long time.
And it's very good.
we're gonna start.
Are we?
What?
Then
And Bob is getting
Gonna start what?
a little bit used to eating some of this food. He says to me sometimes, can we just have regular food? Because he's not used to eating
Garage.
a lot of vegetarian dishes or dishes
You guys
that are
go.
made with different ingredients. He's more of a meat, potato, or simple casserole guy. And, so I do, because when the kids go to the cottage, I cook his regular food, chicken wings, hamburgers,
I think
all of that stuff. But we have, like tonight, this is now, I'm recording this or voiceover on Monday. We'll be having pizza tonight, so that's regular food.
Well, we can.
were you?
So doesn't that look good? Oh my gosh. You could eat the stuffing with just a fork. I mean, it's all cooked. All we're going to do now is I'm going to add a little bit of Parmesan cheese to the top of it. I mean, you can't have an Italian stuffing without putting some Parmesan cheese on it. So I'm going to add just a little Parmesan cheese to the top of it. And then once I figure out how to put the broiler on in this stove, we'll put the broiler on and
No,
put them under the broiler just long enough to melt up that cheese and make sure everything's nice and hot.
Come here. You're not helping.
So let's get the cheese on.
he's trying to.
Good job.
There you go. All right, let's get them cooked and we'll show you what they look like when they come back out of the oven. And then we're going to dig in. Sorry, no taste test because 4 of us were waiting to eat dinner. There you go. Look at that. Isn't that look delicious? And it is. So wait a minute. I'll see you next time. Everybody play nice now.